Hi everyone, welcome to Descript with Henry. Henry, what's the first step someone should take if they want to start budgeting?
Hey Lisa, great question. The very first thing is understanding your income. Before you can decide how to spend or save, you need to know exactly how much money is coming in each month.
That sounds obvious, but I bet many people don't really know their true monthly income, especially if they have irregular paychecks or multiple income sources.
Exactly. For someone with a regular job, this might be straightforward. The number on their paycheck after taxes, sometimes called net income or take-home pay. But for freelancers, contractors, or anyone with variable income, it's a little trickier.
What do you suggest for those with irregular income?
I recommend looking back over the past 6 months and calculating the average monthly income. That way, you get a realistic picture. Take the total earned over 6 months, then divide by 6. This average becomes your budgeting baseline.
Makes sense. So, once you know your income, what's next?
The next step is tracking your expenses. You have to know where your money is going before you can control it. This is often the most eye-opening step.
Yeah, I've heard some people get shocked when they realize how much they spend on little things like coffee or subscriptions.
Right, and small expenses add up quickly. The key is to track everything. Use a notebook, an app, or even your bank statements. For beginners, apps like Mint or YNAB, you need a budget, are really helpful because they connect to your accounts and categorize expenses automatically.
What if someone doesn't want to use apps or feels overwhelmed by technology?
No problem. The old-fashioned way works just fine. Keep receipts, jot down daily spending in a notebook, or download monthly bank and credit card statements and review them manually.
Okay, so we know income and expenses. What comes after that?
Now it's time to organize expenses into categories. This is where many budgets start to take shape. Generally, you can group spending into fixed expenses, variable essentials, and discretionary spending.
Can you explain those a bit more?
Sure. Fixed expenses are costs that stay roughly the same each month, like rent or mortgage, car payments, insurance premiums, or subscriptions. Variable essentials are necessary but can fluctuate, like groceries, gas, or utilities. Discretionary spending is anything extra: dining out, entertainment, hobbies, or impulse buys.
Got it. And how does this categorization help with budgeting?
It helps you see where you have to spend money, where you can adjust, and where you might want to cut back. The goal is to make sure your income covers your essentials first, then allocate money towards savings and fun.
Speaking of savings, where do they fit in this picture?
Savings should be treated like a fixed expense. Many experts recommend paying yourself first by automatically transferring a portion of your income into savings right after you get paid.
How much should someone aim to save each month?
A good rule of thumb is 20% of your income. But if that feels impossible, start with 5% or even 1%. The key is consistency and building the habit.
That sounds encouraging, but I know some people say budgeting feels restrictive, like it takes the joy out of spending.
Budgeting isn't about deprivation, it's about control. When you have a plan, you can spend guilt-free because you know you're not overspending or jeopardizing your future goals.
That's a great mindset shift. How do you suggest beginners actually start making their budget after tracking and categorizing?
Start simple. Use the 50-30-20 rule as a guideline. 50% of your income goes to needs: rent, utilities, groceries. 30% goes to wants: dining out, entertainment, shopping. 20% goes to savings and debt repayment. This isn't perfect for everyone, but it's a great starting point.
Could you give an example?
Absolutely. If someone earns $3,000 a month after taxes, $1,500 for needs, $900 for wants, $600 for savings and debt. If you find your needs are more than 50%, you might need to adjust your wants or find ways to lower essentials.
And if someone is deep in debt and wants to pay it off quickly?
Then the 20% for savings and debt might be increased, with a corresponding decrease in wants.
Before we wrap up, any tips on sticking to a budget?
Yes, track your spending regularly, review your budget monthly, and be flexible. Budgets aren't set in stone. They should evolve as your life changes.
Thanks, Henry. That's a solid foundation for anyone wanting to start budgeting. In part one, we talked about understanding your income and categorizing expenses. Now, Henry, let's dive deeper into managing expenses and some common hurdles people face when they start budgeting. What's a good place to begin?
Thanks, Lisa. I think a great starting point is focusing on how to manage variable expenses, because they're the most flexible but also the easiest to overspend on. Things like groceries, eating out, transportation, and entertainment.
Right? Fixed expenses like rent or loan payments are usually non-negotiable, but variable ones can be controlled with good habits.
Exactly. One of the best tools is to set a spending limit for each variable category. For example, if you decide $400 per month is a reasonable grocery budget, track your spending weekly to avoid surprises.
What about eating out? That's often a big budget leak.
Eating out is a huge challenge because it feels like a treat or social time, but those costs add up quickly. My advice is to set a specific monthly dining out allowance, maybe $100 or $150 per month, depending on your income and goals. If you hit the limit early, switch to cooking at home.
How can people keep track of all this easily?
Use apps or even simple spreadsheets. Many people find it helpful to check their spending every few days to stay on track. This also prevents the shock at the end of the month when bills arrive.
That makes sense. What if someone is really bad at controlling impulse buys? How do they stop overspending on wants?
Impulse buying is a tough one. Here are a few practical tips. Wait 24 hours. When you want to buy something non-essential, wait a full day. Often the urge fades. Unsubscribe from marketing emails. Less temptation from sales and promotions. Use cash envelopes. Withdraw your discretionary spending money in cash, and when it's gone, it's gone. Avoid retail therapy. Find other ways to relax or feel better, like exercise or hobbies.
I love the cash envelope idea. It feels more real than swiping a card.
It's very effective. On the flip side, don't feel guilty for spending on small treats occasionally. That's part of a sustainable budget.
Okay, what about unexpected expenses like car repairs or medical bills? How should beginners plan for those?
Great question. This is where an emergency fund comes in. Ideally, you should aim to save 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in a separate savings account for emergencies.
That sounds intimidating to save all at once.
It can be, but you don't have to save it overnight. Start small, maybe $25 or $50 a month, and build it gradually. Even a few $100s can cover many smaller emergencies.
What if someone faces an emergency before they have that fund?
Sometimes people use credit cards or loans in emergencies, but this can lead to a debt cycle if not handled carefully. That's why building an emergency fund, even slowly, is so important.
Speaking of debt, how does managing debt fit into budgeting?
Debt repayment should be part of your budget, usually combined with your savings. There are two popular methods, the debt snowball and the debt avalanche.
Can you explain those?
Sure. The debt snowball method means paying off your smallest debts first to gain momentum and motivation, then moving on to larger debts. The debt avalanche prioritizes paying off debts with the highest interest rates first, saving money on interest over time.
Which is better?
It depends on the person. The snowball works well for people who need psychological wins. The avalanche is mathematically faster and cheaper. Either method is good as long as you're consistent.
Got it. Budgeting also requires discipline and motivation. What advice do you have for staying motivated?
Set clear, meaningful goals. For example, saving for a vacation, a home down payment, or retirement. Visual reminders help, like a picture of your dream home or a travel destination.
So connecting budgeting to what matters most makes it easier to stick to?
Exactly. Also, celebrate small victories. When you hit a savings milestone or pay off a debt, reward yourself responsibly. This keeps the process positive.
Lastly, what's your biggest tip for beginners who feel overwhelmed by budgeting?
Start small and be patient. Don't try to overhaul your entire financial life in one day. Make small changes each week. Budgeting is a skill that improves with practice.
Thanks, Henry. I'm sure many listeners find that encouraging. Next episode, we'll talk about budgeting tools and apps for beginners. Can't wait.
Me too. Until then, remember, budgeting is about gaining control and peace of mind with your money.
Go to the final part. In part 2, Henry and I talked about managing expenses and overcoming common challenges. Now we'll cover budgeting tools, how to stick to your budget, and building long-term habits. Henry, what are some good tools for beginners?
Hi, Lisa. There are lots of great options out there. For beginners, I usually recommend starting with something simple and easy to use. Apps like Mint, YNAB, You Need a Budget, are popular because they help automate tracking and categorize spending.
I've heard about those. How do they actually help?
They connect securely to your bank accounts and credit cards, then automatically track and categorize your transactions. This saves you from manually entering every expense and gives you real-time visibility into your spending patterns.
That sounds super helpful. But what if someone prefers pen and paper or spreadsheets?
That works perfectly too. The best budget is one you'll actually use. Some people find writing expenses down helps them be more mindful of spending. Spreadsheets, like Google Sheets or Excel, are flexible and allow you to customize categories and formulas.
Is there a downside to manual tracking?
It can be more time-consuming and prone to error, but it forces mindfulness. Digital tools save time, but require trusting software. Some prefer a mix, using apps, but reviewing or adjusting categories manually.
Great to know. What about setting reminders or alerts? Can those help keep someone on track?
Absolutely. Many apps have built-in alerts for when you're close to your spending limits or bills are due. Setting calendar reminders for monthly budget reviews can keep you engaged and aware.
Speaking of reviews, how often should beginners check their budget?
At least once a week to track progress and once a month for a deeper review. The weekly check helps catch overspending early. The monthly review lets you see trends and adjust categories or limits as needed.
What if after a month the budget doesn't work well? Should someone give up?
No, budgeting is a learning process. If something isn't working, tweak it. Maybe your grocery budget is too low or you underestimated entertainment expenses. Flexibility is key.
Any tips for maintaining motivation over the long term?
Yes, link your budget to your goals regularly. For example, if you're saving for a vacation, picture that trip when tempted to overspend. Also, involve family or friends for support and accountability.
That social aspect sounds helpful. What about building good financial habits beyond budgeting?
Good question. Budgeting is just the foundation. Over time, try to automate savings and bill payments to avoid late fees and build your emergency fund effortlessly. Regularly review your financial goals, short-term and long-term. Educate yourself about personal finance to make informed decisions. Avoid lifestyle inflation. Don't increase spending just because income grows.
Lifestyle inflation is when your expenses grow with your income, right?
Exactly. It can prevent you from building wealth even if you earn more. Staying mindful helps you save and invest more.
Speaking of investing, when should someone start investing if they're budgeting?
Once you have a stable budget, an emergency fund, and manageable debt, consider investing. Even small amounts can grow over time. Budgeting helps free up money for investments.
Thanks for that insight, Henry. Before we finish, any final advice for beginners starting their budgeting journey?
Yes, be patient, consistent, and kind to yourself. Budgeting is a skill developed over time. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Every step toward managing your money is a win.
Perfectly said. Thank you so much, Henry, for sharing all these valuable tips.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to our listeners. Remember, budgeting is about control and freedom, not restriction.
That's a wrap for today. If you enjoyed this series, stay tuned for more personal finance topics coming soon. Bye for now.